We did the first half on yesterday's recording. Today, we finish out our first 2024 NFL mock draft on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins.
Hello.
And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month.
Joe, I'd like to know if you have been surprised by me following through on my promise to exclusively wear this starter jacket on the show.
I've been waiting for you to bring this up because there's a very controversial thing that we need to discuss as it relates to this. Because some people are saying that it's already over. You blew it because when we did the bonus episode on the Joe Burrow situation where he was out for the season, you didn't wear it. So some people are thinking that you've already not made good on that promise.
It's right here.
When we did that episode.
It was right here.
But you didn't wear it.
Was it a bonus episode?
All I heard was episode.
What was it? A bonus episode?
It was an episode.
Okay, so no, it was not it was not a regularly scheduled programming. So no,
the people will decide. Leave a comment on this YouTube.
Yeah, go
video.
ahead. Leave a comment.
Let us know. Let us know.
We got impromptu called Ross. Hey, do you want to do 10 minutes on this? I'm like, yeah,
real shame you didn't have it on.
Just throw everything together on my computer. Sit down. We'll knock it out. No questions asked. It was not a 30-minute program. It was not the Draft Dudes programming. It was a bonus segment.
I saw an episode. It was episode posted to the podcast feed and the YouTube feed. I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's fine. It's not our regulars. Did we do it? Did we tell everybody about our friends and sponsors during that?
I don't remember. I just remember it being an episode.
So it's not a show. Okay.
I just remember it being an episode.
I'm just glad we're on the same page. Why are we talking about the mock draft?
Hey, this will be fun. Bills are picking in this slate. Dolphins are up. Yeah, so we did the we did the first half yesterday of this mock draft. So hopefully you've listened to that and you're ready for part two, Kyle. In this slate, we had the Bengals, Bills, Saints, Vikings, and Cardinals all scheduled to make some picks. Let's do it.
Right, too. It was only 5 picks. Let's go. Fired up. I was like, man, I hope I've got to do the math here. I'm not going to actually count how many you're going to put in the first segment, so I hope the math checks out.
We're not even into the playoff teams, and we got the Bengals and Bills up first today. What's going on with Cincinnati? How are we going to help this football operation?
Cincinnati, their right tackle situation is what?
Jonah Williams on an expiring contract.
A begrudged Jonah Williams on an expiring contract. I think that one's probably water under the bridge, right?
He's played okay, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think they got too many other things going on here with their free agents.
Joe Burrow, hurt, and miss the rest of the year. Let's continue the investment and protect our franchise quarterback, please. I'm going with Amarius Mims, offensive tackle, University of Georgia. This is one of the guys I texted you about, where I was like, oh my God, Joe. And he got his first starts like in the college football playoff last year. And just an absolute savage of a player. Crazy long, crazy physical, crazy athletic, ceiling super high. Sample size is not particularly big, which is part of the concern there. I know he had ankle tightrope surgery this season, so missed a little bit of time with that, but returned recently for Georgia. And he can kick some butt up front. And in the AFC North, you need guys that could do that in the trenches. So I'm giving the Bengals Amarius Mims, offensive tackle, University of Georgia.
Buffalo Bills here at pick number 18. Kyle, what Gabe Davis replacement is coming to Buffalo to play opposite of Stephon?
Here's the good news.
Okay.
The wide receiver class is crazy good.
So I'm not getting one right now. That's what
you're not getting one right now.
Oh.
That's correct. I am preparing the Bills for life after Jordan Poyer / Micah Hyde, but whichever comes first, and assuming that shoe's going to drop.
Might be both. Might
right?
be both. Yeah.
Cam Kinchins, safety, University of Miami. The best ball skills of any safety in the class. He is crazy explosive. He can play on the roof of your defense and attack throws to the other side of the field that are vertically down the field and make plays on the ball. He is an absolute dynamite back-end player. So I have him coming to Buffalo to add some much-needed athleticism to that Bills secondary and give them a long-term outlook at the safety position beyond the two aging vets that they have.
All right, give me my wide receiver 2 in the second round. But this guy sounds helpful. Sounds like a really helpful player against that team that's about to win the division. Miami.
Yeah.
It
and
seems like a nice piece.
We have the rest of the way in the first round. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. There's probably about another 10 that you can make an argument for being like top 64 picks. So you're going to get a wide receiver.
The Saints, number 19, another one of these teams that probably has some big changes coming, potentially with their coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to help the Saints here at pick 19?
I'm giving the Saints a offensive lineman. And this offensive lineman, Joe, literally can play all 5 spots on the offensive line. He's played center in the past. He's currently a tackle. He's got the flex to move to guard. So I'm thinking about the Saints, and I'm thinking about Andrews Pete. And I'm thinking about Trevor Penning being what he's supposed to be, right? Like, we've got a little bit of fluidity there. It's Graham Barton, University of Duke. This is one of my favorite players in the class because of the athleticism, the versatility, and I think he is a plug-and-play starter and can play anywhere you want. So whatever combination you want, you got McCoy at center, you got Ramczyk at right tackle. They just extended
Ruiz
too.
Yep.
So you got the foundation's pretty set.
Mm-hmm.
But Penning hasn't materialized the way that they've wanted him to. And then you also have the Andrews Pete transition that you're looking at as well. So I think there's a spot for him, but they're at their best offensively when they got guys up front that are locked in.
Athletic offensive linemen should be something that people perk up when they hear. I don't know if you saw this recently through Twitter. You saw one of these graphs where it was offensive line performance and RAS score, relative athletic score. The best offensive lines are the ones that are the most athletic right now in the NFL. So,
how about the one that's definitively head and shoulders the least athletic of the bunch is Cincinnati?
Hi, Cincinnati. Yeah, you have no athletes. You're the worst offensive line in the NFL.
Mims. There you go.
Gotcha.
I got you.
Hey, you helped them. They're very good. Very good. So we're at pick 20, the Minnesota Vikings on the board.
The new man.
Here's another new man. Yeah, who is it?
The best Alabama corner eligible in this year's class, which is Terrion Arnold. It's not Kool-Aid McKinstry. I know Kool-Aid had a fun name. I know Kool-Aid was the buzzy name all summer long, kind of like Keely Ringo was last year before Keely Ringo didn't even get drafted in the first 2 days of the draft. I don't think Kool-Aid falls quite that far. A little bit more on him later. But Terrion Arnold is trending in the right direction. I think he's much more consistent in coverage. He's still physical. He tackles really, really well. I love his tape. I thought he's taken massive strides forward this year, and we've talked to death about this corner room in Minnesota and how they need some horses.
Kyle not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well, hold on.
Hold on. Well, the Cardinals are picking at 21. This is the pick that they got from Houston. So good on Houston to win a bunch of football games and not give them that high of a pick.
If you're going to do this kind of deal, this is what you should do so that you win the games.
So they got Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle from Illinois, earlier in this mock draft at pick 5 after trading out of 2.
And now they get Kool-Aid at 21.
All right, there it is.
So McKinstry is the other Alabama corner, very highly regarded. Long, very big, very physical, good ball skills. I just think Arizona, if especially if you're going to stay on the Jonathan Gannon path, we need to invest in that side of the football pretty significantly. And I know they're playing hard and all that, but they need talent.
Yeah.
So I give them some talent there in the secondary. So 2 premium spots, interior defensive line and corner for Arizona.
All right, so we open up the second half of this mock draft. Pick 17, the Bengals tackle Amarius Mims out of Georgia. At 18, the Bills get Cameron Kitchens, a safety out of Miami.
Kitchens,
not
There's
Kitchens.
No T. I did that for the first 3 weeks I was talking about. It's
huge. Thank you for that. Number 19, the Saints, Graham Barton, offensive lineman out of Duke. At number 20, the Vikings, Terrion Arnold, cornerback, Alabama, and his running mate, Kool-Aid McKinstry, 21 to the Cardinals. We got the Seahawks, Steelers, Texans, Dolphins, Cowboys, all coming up here in just a moment. But, folks, you got to check out FanDuel. Score early this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a ton of different things that you can bet on, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I've really been having a lot of success with the player props this year. So get in on that action. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Let's do it.
All right. So we've been on a little bit of a DB run here. So 3 of the last 5 picks, defensive backs. The Seattle Seahawks at number 22. They've got defensive backs, Kyle. I'm guessing we go a different direction here.
Yeah, I thought about quarterback here with obviously Geno and his contract situation and a little bit of the regression relative to the first 3 quarters of last season versus what it's looked like since. But I didn't go quarterback. I did stay in the Pacific Northwest, however, with the Washington Huskies program, the same program that has the quarterback that I may end up mocking to Seattle if I were to go quarterback with Michael Penix. And I'm going with Braylon Trice, defensive lineman, pretty productive pass rusher there. I know Seattle continues to invest there, but they had a big departure with their defensive line, more so on the interior. But regardless, they've kind of churned that group out the past 12 months. They trade for Leonard Williams at the trade deadline. I know they have some guys that are a little banged up, but you got Mario Edwards playing snaps for you right now. You got Darrell Taylor and Derek Hall as a couple of young guys, and Boye Mafe. You brought Frank Clark back. Like, there's room for another guy in this group if Mario Edwards and Frank Clark are taking snaps. Is kind of my point. So I'd like to continue to get some young athleticism. He's a bigger edge guy. I think he's built pretty well to play in that front specifically. He's 260 pounds. So I like the fit of Trice in Seattle.
23, the Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock here. Just fired Matt Canada. Potentially some help for the offense, or we're going defense for Pittsburgh?
So here's the thing. I'd love to know what Pittsburgh has offensively with not Matt Canada, because I look at the roster and I think there's more prevalent issues elsewhere.
Personnel-wise on defense?
Yes.
Yeah.
How athletic are we on the back end?
We're not.
Aside of Joey Porter, and he's kind of a big corner anyway, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. How athletic? Genuine question. How athletic are we with Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson and James Pierre and Shannon Sullivan right now? Kalen King's the pick. We are going back to the Penn State well. See what I did there? We are.
Yeah, I see that.
Going back to the Penn State
very,
well.
very well done. Very well
Joey
done.
Porter was the 32nd pick in last year's draft. Kalen King, I thought, was a better player on tape last year at Penn State. He's a little bit of a different body type. He's not as big. He's not as long, but he's more rapid foot fire. Gives you, I think, a much needed level of quick twitch in that secondary. So I'm going Kalen King, another Penn State corner for Pittsburgh. So
maybe you have the new Ike Taylor, William Gay tandem for Pittsburgh in
there you go.
King and Porter Jr. They need some stability there at corner. Number 24, we have the Houston Texans on the clock, courtesy of the Cleveland Browns, as they continue to pay the price for Deshaun Watson. What are we adding here for CJ Stroud and company?
So this one was too good to pass up. I understand Tank Dell's played phenomenally. I understand Nico Collins has emerged quite a bit. But I think about the offensive line. They invested a lot, and that group will get healthy next year, you're assuming, right?
Yeah.
So you'll get reinforcements just by getting guys back healthy. You're an offensive football team now. Sorry, I know you got a defensive-minded head coach, but CJ Stroud and what they're doing from a big play perspective and Bobby Slowick, let's lean into that. Go with Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State, reuniting him with CJ Stroud, that pre-existing chemistry. We've seen a lot of young quarterbacks have their teams do this, where they go out and get a target that he had pre-existing chemistry with from their college days. And I think adding Egbuka so you can transition potentially away from Robert Woods. We haven't really seen a ton of John Mechie as he's been getting back. Xavier Hutchinson's the other wide receiver that's in this group right now, not including Noah Brown. He's a totally different body type. I just think if you give me Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Emeka Egbuka, you got a really, really good core trio of guys that you could run a lot of successful 11 personnel out of.
More pass catchers. That's not a bad thing, right? For a young quarterback, build around him. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. They went from having all the first-round picks to the last couple of years, right? Using those first-round picks to trade for players. What are we doing here? Who we adding to this mix?
So it's a little bit of a mystery bag from the sense of they have so many expiring contracts that they have to determine who they're going to keep and who they're not going to keep. Connor Williams at center, expiring contract. Robert Hunt, right guard, expiring contract. Austin Jackson, right tackle, expiring contract. Isaiah Wynn, the original starting left guard, is an expiring contract. Yeah, Christian Wilkins at defensive tackle is expiring contract. Like, those are the big decisions that Miami's going to have to make, and they're not going to have the money to pay everybody. So somebody's going to go. So I'm looking at who's available, just like they are presumably looking at who's available and assessing, hey, what are our opportunities to add players realistically that can step in and help us? And I'm having them go offensive line, and I'm having them to take the player that I think could play left guard if you needed him to, which I think is the one spot that is wide open regardless, because Isaiah Wynn was only here on a one-year deal anyway and was kind of a filler player, even though he played well. But he could, if you needed to, find an offensive tackle as a starter if you don't retain Austin Jackson, who has far performed his norms. He's been a really good right tackle this year. And I'm going with Jordan Morgan going to the Senior Bowl. That was just announced the other day. University of Arizona offensive tackle. Reminds me a lot of Matthew Bergeron. And Bergeron was drafted by the Falcons in the top 50 to play guard for them. So I think there's some positional flex there that makes a lot of sense for Miami. Gives them the opportunity to kind of make their personnel decisions. And then if you can add him, he can presumably be a group of your best five combo.
All right. Offensive line help for the Miami Dolphins. We got more to get to here in this segment. The Dallas Cowboys now on the clock at pick number 26. Always a fun team to consider what they can do to add. I know that there's a lot of different directions. Where are we going?
I thought you were going to break. I was like, whoa.
No.
You were teasing. We got more. I'm going with an interior defensive lineman, and I know Dallas has got Mozzie Smith there. I know Odigizua has been a pretty productive player for them there. I don't like the linebacker value here a whole lot at all. I'm going with another super high upside defensive lineman for Dallas because they got the safeties behind it. They got the DBs behind it to run. You would like to move Micah Parsons around, so you want to have some flexibility. This is an interior player, and it's Leonard Taylor from the University of Miami. And when I did him in the summer, this was like a top 5 potential type player. Now, this season has not materialized for him to that degree. So that's why he's slipping a little bit. But like, if you told me Leonard Taylor was in this class based off of the tools and his potential, you could not convince me he would not get out of the first round. That he would get out of the first round. Excuse me. You could not convince me that would happen. He's way too athletically gifted. He is way too special of a movement skills type player at the stature that he is. And if you told me you were putting him into a nucleus that had DeMarcus Lawrence and Mozzie Smith and Micah Parsons and Odigizua, who's been a better player for them as he has continued to age and get more mature, it'd be everything you would possibly want to put him in an environment where he could develop and live up to his potential, which is get like game wrecker 3 technique type potential is what he has.
Well, this is kind of that part of the first round where the toolsy defensive linemen go, right?
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Back 8 picks of the first round.
Yeah, this is where we'll see, but I think there could be maybe a couple more coming as well. 49ers pick 27 here. Another team that kind of not been picking in the first round a lot here is on the board here. Where are we going here? I mean, I think offensive line makes a lot of sense. Maybe the secondary. Niners.
I'm going in the secondary just because the offensive line group is kind of tapped out now. If you went back to the first day that we did this show, tackle at 3, tackle at 6, tackle at 7, tackle at 9, tackle at 17, tackle or offensive lineman at 19, tackle at or offensive lineman at 25. Like you're really getting close to double-digit offensive linemen in the first round
crazy.
already.
Yep.
So don't love the value there. I'll go with Josh Newton, cornerback out of TCU. He's kind of fits the build and athletic mold that they've gone after at corner. When you think about even going all the way back to Emmanuel Mosley and Akello Witherspoon, like those types of players, like he kind of looks and plays like that. So I think it's a good fit from a style perspective for San Francisco as they've continued to merge departing defensive coordinators with their own ideologies and apply it appropriately with their in-house system.
All right, this is a fun chunk of picks here. 22, Seattle, Washington edge, Braylon Trice at 23. The Steelers get another Penn State corner, this time Kalen King. At 24, the Texans, courtesy of the Browns, Ohio State wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. 25, the Miami Dolphins add offensive lineman Jordan Morgan from the Arizona Wildcats. At 26, the Cowboys, Leonard Taylor III, defensive tackle out of Miami. And at 27, TCU cornerback Josh Newton to the San Francisco 49ers. We got the Jags, Ravens, Lions, Chiefs, and Eagles all slated to pick here in just a moment. Stick with us, but this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This time of year can be challenging for some people, and it's natural to feel some sadness or even some anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded and give you the tools necessary to manage everything that's going on. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It even empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire that'll get you matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists at any time for any reason for no additional charge. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. The Jacksonville Jaguars here at pick number 28. Kyle Krabs, we building around Trevor Lawrence, or are we adding more dynamic talent to that defense?
More dynamic talent to that defense. You can never have enough what?
Edge rushers, corners.
Edge rushers, baby. So we got Trayvon Walker, former first overall pick. We have Josh Allen. Is Josh Allen going to be there?
Good question.
Right? So we need a little bit more juice off the edge. So we're going to go Chop Robinson. Pass rusher, Penn State, formerly University of Maryland, transferred in. He's maybe a little short of what your hopes and expectations were for him. If you were high on him, there's a lot of Penn State edge rushers over the years that have been built like this at 6'3", 6'4", 240, 245 pounds. Sometimes they go high. Sometimes they slip. I think he's athletic and explosive enough that he can get drafted in this upper echelon, top 50 type stratosphere. And at this stage, I thought he was the pass rusher that made the most sense for Jacksonville stylistically.
Baltimore Ravens at number 29. Always a fun team to consider their draft. What they do, you can make a case for defense, possibly based on some contracts. Offensively, you're always looking to add around Lamar Jackson. Where are we going?
Go wide receiver, Joe. Come on now.
Man, that's so many. That's so much. It's what player, obviously, I'm curious, but.
So it's the literal opposite of what they drafted their last first round pick wide receiver on.
Which was Zay Flowers.
Looks
good. Looks like a nice player.
5'9", 175 pounds of Zay Flowers. Let's get different body types in this room. Let's get a little bit more vertical explosion. Let's get ball skills, contested catchability. Lamar loves throwing him to Mark Andrews, right?
Yeah.
Loves throwing to Mark Andrews. Hope Mark Andrews gets healthy very quickly, by the way. It doesn't sound like a really ugly injury that he took, and obviously it sounds like his season is over unless they make a deep playoff run. But Keon Coleman's my pick. Formerly of Michigan State, now at Florida State, 6'4", 210. We had this debate, right? We had this discussion when Lamar Jackson was coming out. You remember that? About what kinds of wide receivers make the most sense for Lamar.
Still haven't figured it out, have we?
Still haven't figured it out. So let's get them one of each and let's find out, right? You got Zay Flowers, Keon Coleman is a vertical plane receiver with crazy good ball skills, very explosive, very physical at the catch point, mosses guys on a weekly basis. If you gave me that, because what are we really investing in long-term in Odell? He got a 1-year deal, right? With like a bunch of void money on the back end of it.
Yep.
Like he probably not going to be here. I get Rashad Bateman was a first-round pick, but has that materialized to bring Rashad Bateman as a long-term
Nothing
investment?
consistent there. Right. Yeah.
Right. So you can't bank on it. You just can't. Which again puts you in this position where it's like, okay, you got Mark Andrews. Now you got Zay Flowers, which will be going into year 2, and he's looked very promising. And what? Like, we don't know. So get him a different body type, win down the field. Keon Coleman's the pick for the Ravens.
So we had quite a few receivers in the top 12, and then it's been a lull for receivers. But since pick 24, we've had 3 of them. Next up is the Detroit Lions at pick 30. They added a ton to that defense this past offseason. A little help for the offense this time around?
They are going wide receiver.
3 in a row.
This is a fun player. Xavier Leggette, South Carolina. Kind of Spencer Rattler's go-to guy this year. Joe, this is a 6'1", 220-pound player that's hitting 22 miles per hour in the open field on the.
Is he AJ Brown? Is that AJ Brown? I mean, that's...
Well, it's the comp everybody's wanting to make is Debo because he plays at South Carolina.
You said he was 220 pounds, 6'1", 220.
Yeah.
Everybody, the weirdest receivers get comped to Debo every year. I swear, it's the weirdest thing going on.
And to be fair, from Leggett's perspective, like you do get some of that like San Francisco schemed touch stuff that Debo has. Although Debo, I thought coming out of South Carolina was very underrated as a route runner, where I don't think Leggett's necessarily there just yet. But you think about Amon-Ra St. Brown, we don't have a problem with running routes there. You got Jameson Williams as the vertical rocket. And, we'll see if he's able to stabilize after a slow start to his career. You got Laporta as a tight end in the middle of the field. You add Leggett as kind of a Ben Johnson, if he's there, schemed touch type of player.
Yeah. That
is not going to be early on anyone's list of who to take away. So he's going to get a lot of one-on-ones with his size and physicality and explosiveness. And like this passing at Jared Goff going to be living good, man. So I really like the fit of Xavier Leggett to the Lions.
Why? I can't stop thinking about Treylon Burks. Is he a better version of that?
Oh, he's comfortably better than Treylon Burks.
All right, good.
He's much more diverse than Treylon Burks, too.
31, the Kansas City Chiefs on the board.
Why don't you
better help Pat? You got to help Pat Mahomes here.
We're going to go with A.D. Mitchell, formerly of the University of Georgia Bulldogs, now with the Texas Longhorns. This is another 6'4" vertical plane receiver, wins down the field. He's had a breakout year this year for Texas. Still maybe not the monster numbers that you'd like to have, but Texas has a bunch of skill guys between like Xavier Worthy and Jonathan Brooks, the running back, who unfortunately had his season ended with a knee injury, but looked really good. You got Jatavian Sanders, the tight end there, who's a potential top 50 type candidate as well. They got an embarrassment of riches as a skill group for Steve Sarkisian. So if you're expecting big time numbers, he's got 43 receptions for almost 700 yards, but 9 touchdowns in the first 11 games of the season. And Texas is going to get a chance to play a couple more. I would not be surprised if he makes a push for 1,000 yards, but not get there. He is not as physical as Keon Coleman, but I think he's more explosive than Keon Coleman. But I think they win in comparable ways. So at the very least, I think this is good Marquez Valdes-Scantling. A.D. Mitchell would not have dropped the ball that Valdes-Scantling just dropped.
Careful on that right now.
Hey, it helped us out because we both picked the Eagles to win the game. So,
right. 32, last but not least, the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock here. Again, this order is based on the current draft order. And so going into this week, they were picking last. Who's Mr. Irrelevant in this first round?
Mr. Irrelevant in this first round is a defensive lineman.
Oh, the Eagles. Wow. I'm shocked.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's Landon Jackson from Arkansas. Do you remember the kid that they were doing the bag drills on the end zone? And it was like, it went viral where this kid with these really long arms was super lanky, was doing this bag, like the slap the bag drill. And it just looks totally disjointed. That was him. and he's grown into his frame by about 60 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
He's stacked on a ton of mass. He's about 280 pounds now. I think about Milton Williams being a player that's going into a contract year as a player that plays all up and down the defensive line for Philadelphia. You think about Brandon Graham and where he's at this stage of his career, right? I think there's enough rotational reps available in Philadelphia where you can justify getting ahead of a need with how much they invest in that defensive line. And he has kind of plays like Trayvon Walker, like to kind of just paint the picture like the style of player that he is as a defensive end. His fun fact is he did his NIL thing was with World Wrestling Entertainment. So if it falls through with football,
okay,
it'd be and like if you told me that anybody that win the first round had an NIL deal with World Wrestling Entertainment's like talent development pipeline, like this would be the guy that I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. Like he's that dude. Just
there it
super
is.
rock player, very linear, quick twitch explosiveness, and has showcased now this season, I thought, a pretty good pass rush palette as well.
28, the Jaguars edge rusher Chop Robinson from Penn State. 29, Keon Coleman, the wide receiver from Florida State to the Ravens. At 30, the Lions get another receiver here, Xavier Leggette from South Carolina. The wide receiver run continues at pick 31 with the Chiefs getting Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. And the Eagles at 32, edge rusher Landon Jackson out of Arkansas.
That is going to do it for the mock draft. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, locked on NFL scouting. Back in the draft game. We're here. Had a lot of fun. Joe, you got to do the next one, though, so start prepping. We'll give you a little time.
Thank you.
And hope you guys enjoy the weekend of football ahead. I'm Kyle Krabs. He's Joe Marino. And you can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We're out of here. Peace.